Λοιπόν, αυτό το οποίο
Well,
ήθελα
what
εγώ
I
σήμερα να συζητήσουμε
would like to discuss today
αφορά στην ηθική διάσταση του θέματος
touches
και
upon the
ξεκινάει
ethical
έτσι από τον
dimension to
αγαπημένο
things
μας
and
Αριστοτέλη,
starting from our
που
dearly beloved
το βάζει ως
Aristotle.
αυτό ερώτημα.
So we have a
Σε βάση αυτό
fundamental
το
question.
άκουσα στους
When
φοιτητές
I
μου
start
την εβδομάδα διάρκεια
lessons to my
δουλειά
students, I
πανεπιστήμιο,
ask them,
ποια είναι η πρώτη παρατήρηση
coming
που
to
έκαναν στην
university,
ανθρώπινη
what is
λογοτεχνία
the
και
first observation we have in human literature regarding artificial intelligence?
ακαδημαϊκούς
And my
θεωρητικούς
students start teasing me and they say,
μελετητές
Professor, we know that you're
μαθηματικές
Greek. Yes, we had the magical stable of
επιστήμονες
Hephaestus,
και να θέλουν
etc. And then I ask the second question, what was the first moment in human
μια
literature
ηθική
when we
διόρθωση.
talked about matters related to ethics vis-a-vis artificial intelligence? And most of the times they talk to me about Isaac Asimov. For all of you who do not know him, Isaac presented the three laws of robotics regarding the morality that should govern artificial intelligence. He said that if we build an artificial intelligence system, we would like the system never to harm the human person, either actively or not. Secondly, we'd like the system to obey the human being and not break rule number one. And number three, a robot must protect its own existence and respect the first two laws at the same time. Historically speaking, it appears to me that it's very interesting to hear about a man discussing the ethical dimensions to think, the ethical impact, that is, the moral impact regarding artificial intelligence. Aristotle in his Republic. So, in a text of his, I'll just read a short part and say, and the speaker is reading in ancient Greek. Which means, in effect, to translate it, says the speaker, for you to understand, if we manage to reach the point whereby organs will be able to function, or instruments will be able to function in their own right, if we give them an order, they'll end up behaving like the mythical tools of Daedalus and god Hephaestus. And the important thing is the last feature that he mentions. Aristotle, since very old times, already believed that if artificial intelligence ever comes to be, man will break free from slavery and they will not need to work and be exploited by their employers or masters. And of course, it goes without saying that my purpose here is not to teach history. I would like us to focus on this wonderful phrase, a phrase which, in my opinion, is a Marxist phrase, if you think about it. This is the bottom line. This is the first personal viewpoint whereby automation in labor, in a sense, can offer us the opportunity to allow people not to be taken advantage of as a working class and to set them free from the necessary evil of drudgery and too much work. Interestingly, 2,000 years have lapsed since the time of Aristotle. Historically speaking, financially, there's been a major transformation from feudalism. We passed to the stage of modern capitalism. We had the universal pattern of economy, and we had the Protestant way. We had the transformation of capital. We left gold. We moved to the oil, digitalization, and so on and so forth. However, throughout this process, we never, ever discussed this exhortation by Aristotle. He said, mind you, a time will come when automation will set man free from labor drudgery. And all of a sudden, something happened and Aristotle became relevant again and quite interesting. Now, in any classical discussion during which we try to embrace the idea of artificial intelligence, what people discuss as the Luddite phenomenon. I don't want to talk about it here today. It's not the first time in human history when labor was automated. Luddites were people that worked during the first industrial revolution in London. They were losing their jobs because of labor automation, and that's the reason why they ended up breaking tools and instruments to prevent their dismissal. Human history showed in a negative way that we don't learn our lessons in the end, unfortunately. We grow accustomed to showing indifference to previous generations. Unfortunately, we forget the way in which previous generations or older people than we are will have to adjust to whatever comes next in progress. With technological progress, however, when jobs disappear, other jobs appear, and after many decades, there comes a professional balance and equilibrium. But I have this question. This happened during the three previous industrial revolution. Whatever has changed, and we have organized an entire conference regarding posthumanism and artificial intelligence. In 1700, we had industrial revolution with steam, then electricity. In the 1990s, we had indeed the flourishing of digitization and the advent of computers, and we didn't have discussions like the one that we're having today. What is it that has changed things to such an extent that we keep talking about artificial intelligence? I believe that if we think about it deep enough, it's the first time in human history since 5000 BC when man in the agricultural revolution was able to put the cow and the horse in front of the plow in order to increase strength. This is industrial revolution number one, whereby humanity replaced not a physical part of a process concerning economy, for instance, but it's the first time that human beings tried to replace a different part of processes with digitalization and artificial intelligence. So we have tried to do away with something that has to do with mental capacities. If we think about it deep enough in a model with or without God, humanity after the French Revolution built its superiority around the idea of Descartes, cogito ergo sum. What differentiates me from the rest of the creatures? The only way that makes me different is my ability to think. I'm the only creature of reason. And now that I have another object created in this life, an object that appears to have the same mental capacities, this triggers a crisis against myself. Even though I'm not a theologian myself, what I see here is the great conflict of defining again what is the meaning of willingness, will, the personal freedom and constitution of person. And we have two major schools: the school that talks about what lies beyond the cognitive will, talking about the unconscious and what we want, and the existential logic of Friedrich Nietzsche. To touch upon a different dimension to the whole matter, let us think a little bit. What does it mean for man to have mental processes regarded as nothing else than a process of neurons? We needn't compare anything to artificial intelligence. We have a chemical process with polarizations, depolarizations of electrical signals through chemical processes of the brain, and the computer merely does it using different electrical signals. But look at what's interesting here. Human thought does not differ much from artificial intelligence, and we'll come to the interesting philosophical question: why is it that at the bottom line, robots, if they have a consciousness of their own, why is it that they should be turned to our slaves? And if this sounds funny to you, Imagine that the word robot came from Karl Čapek, an Aristophanes author. The word robot is found in a play he wrote in 1920. He was thinking about the right way to describe the machines that we would have do everything that is difficult. He thought of calling them labori, from labor, meaning work. But then he realized that he wanted to express what in Greek we call drudgery. In Greek we use the word hamelik, which is Turkish, drudgery. And he used the word robota from Arbeit in German. And this is how the word or term robot was coined. What can happen when all of a sudden objects have a mind of their own? And what happens when we, as a community, trying to accelerate our own financial processes, bring to life creatures that we turn into slaves and attribute consciousness to them? The time will come when we experience the following, and we see this in AI ethics. If things are so equivalent in their conscience and consciousness, then why not attribute rights to computers? Why ever should they be the slaves of today, modern slaves, if you think about it? Of course, you will ask. We clearly see that we have a different conscience and freedom. Where is this freedom? We make mistakes, we make fewer mistakes. Children make mistakes as well, and children get trained in the way that PCs or AI gets trained, with reward, with imitation, with punishment. And when we train systems, we apply the exact same principles. So where does the difference lie, brain-wise? And the difference is between interpolation and extrapolation. Machines know how to do intervention, which means that if you give them too many data, what they can do is generate other data that will live in the microcosm of data. Man, for example, through data can generate new thoughts. Through nature itself, man can go beyond and outside nature to paint a mathematical picture. If you imagine these 5 dots, for example, these blue dots, the machine can give us the curves of what lies in between, but man can go beyond the total number of data. And here comes a characteristic phenomenon. I'm not a theologian, let me repeat, but a thought that I would like to share with you. Christ comes to deify human nature. Through human nature, God is trying to do something which is different from human nature, but inside it as well. It's the ability of a man living in God to be in the likeness and image of God, to be able to extrapolate, to break free from the drudgery and slavery of data. And concluding regarding this exhortation for a new ethics around things, one will ask, I suppose, how is it that we can trust such tools? And what do we mean by that? Today we use artificial intelligence and many different algorithms to make decisions. You'll give me only 2 minutes, says the speaker, because of the delay that we've had. So we use algorithms. For example, a bank today can decide whether to grant a loan or not using an AI system. We decide whether a person should get out of prison or whether a person should undergo surgery using an artificial intelligence algorithm. But the basic question is, how can we trust tools and instruments when these tools, in effect, are under the influence of our data? And human beings, unfortunately, have not managed to be saints continuously. These data are quite problematic. They are the data that are racist towards many different communities. If you use a facial identification model, the best model of Microsoft can recognize a white man 100%, a woman with darker skin by 80%. 20% is the gap that appears here regarding how to properly describe a person. And here comes a basic question. How can we trust such a tool? Why should we trust it? And when should we not? So my viewpoint is the following. Even though I promised that I wouldn't try to make a theological approach. I'll describe it in a very simple story. I believe that in this day and age, the day and age of postmodernity, people feel so lonely. The only thing that they can do is the following. Think, I love any philosophical or other system that can save me this moment, can give me certainty this moment. If I have cancer, for instance, and somewhere there is a system that can tell me where the system is located and save me, I put my trust in this system. I couldn't care less whether the system in its own right is absolutely infallible according to the scientists that have manufactured it. For many centuries, we've changed the viewpoints about electrons. Outside, there are so many people that are fans of physics. Physics that is so humble, changing itself every day. Another very fast example comes from a medical study that we carried out. We tried to predict whether two features can influence a side effect, a drug side effect. The impressive thing is that the system can predict very well indeed whether or not the side effect will happen. But look at this very strange curve here. We cannot even understand if the contribution of an event is positive or negative. What does the computer do? The only thing it does is that it generates different interpretations, but it's not certain of any of them, hence the fallacy we see in the slide. In artificial intelligence, we asked the system, what do you need for a Nobel Prize? And the answer was, look, the countries that had the most Nobel laureates ate more chocolate. So the Aristotle ethics and morality has eluded us regarding causality. We confused it with statistical correlation. So closing this contribution, I would like to say the following. What I see as a new Aristotle premise is not technophobia vis-à-vis what lies ahead, but fear in view of knowing very few things or learning things at the speed of light, trying to understand something without delving into it, trying really to comprehend it. People today are afraid. Man is afraid, finding oneself in a world that lacks a center to fall back on. In the past, the center was God himself. Today, in very different conditions, man is struggling to find something to fall back on. And this is a deterministic certainty. And even for an atheist, the basic lesson that Freud gave us, what he called the third narcissistic blow to humanity, the existence of the unconscious, that is part of human thought and ontology, that cannot be predicted, that may be outside data. The love and forming relations is nothing more than being able to give the other something that you don't have and something that you didn't know you could have. And this is something that I interpret in this logic of extrapolation, the grace of human nature, capable of breaking free from data. This is what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.